Well, this good afternoon, as this has been one of the craziest mornings I think I've woken up to in quite a while. Is normally I gotta wake up and get some coffee and feed my dogs and then go sit down. But this morning was explosive right from the get go, as Donald Trump wasted no time just going after everybody that he could think of, whether it be fake news or AOC. I mean, this is one of the hottest and fastest moving mornings I think we've ever seen in quite a while. And so I think you should continue that tradition here now. And this show goes on. And this starts with Israel, as Donald Trump over the weekend, he had gone and he had done what he needed to do as peace through strength. As he had said for a very long time that Iran, they cannot have nuclear weapons. He has never wavered on this for a moment. And while the Democrats try to twist this into peace through strength, meaning pacifism, that is not what peace through strength means at all. What peace through strength means is that we will have peace or we will destroy our enemies. And that is exactly what Donald Trump has done. He has given us that very third option. For the longest time, it was the Democrats, right, to pacify or to just forget or just to cower in front of our enemies. And then we had the neocon way for the longest time, where they were just, destroy everybody, invade every country, shoot missiles in every country, do regime changes in every country. We saw how the fruits of those labors turned out for our foreign policy. But as Donald Trump has continued to prove, just like Ronald Reagan said, through peace through strength and Donald Trump's movement of American first, they have gone on to prove, both of them have proved that there is a third option. This is not a binary choice for America. There is the ability to not put boots on the ground, but also not cower to our enemies. And that's what Donald Trump did right from the start. Give Iran 60 days that they will either negotiate a peace deal to remove the nuclear weapons, or they would find out. On the 61st day, they found out. Less than 2 weeks later, Donald Trump dropped his bombs over this weekend, and then Iran now started suing for peace. And of course, Israel and Iran, they're both guilty of this during this peace process of shooting missiles at each other. And apparently this morning, Israel was sending planes over to Iran after the ceasefire over a missile that was shot that apparently didn't even hit its mark. And Donald Trump was hugely pissed off about this, as he posted here on True Social, as he goes, Israel is not going to attack Iran. All planes will turn around and head home, while doing a friendly plane way to Iran. I love the way Donald Trump words this. Nobody will be hurt. The ceasefire is now in effect. Thank you. Your attention matters. Donald Trump, President of the United States of America. And of course, everybody else, the people that hate Donald Trump and all the fake news and everybody else, they immediately started going, see, Donald Trump's peace failed. And they wanted Donald Trump to fail because they want America to fail. These same woke activists would rather our country burn to the ground than lose power. And if they have to lie and they have to manipulate information, then so be it. I mean, how many of them over the past few days were just from the missiles being shot before the ceasefire was even declared, all of a sudden that this wasn't going to work and Donald Trump was going to lose again. They keep guessing wrong, and they keep underestimating Donald Trump and our MAGA movement. Donald Trump, of course, is having none of it. He brought it all to his knees, and now we do have a ceasefire, and now he is on his way to working with NATO. We will see how that plays out over the next few days. But Donald Trump was absolutely furious, and he absolutely should be, as he is mad, one, at Iran and Israel, because they've been fighting each other for so many years. But it doesn't help when you have fake news, the corporate media, when they're openly and blatantly lying to the American people, because they are all in the bag for the Democrats. And so they will go with sources say or experts say to try to push a narrative that they know is false, but they just don't care. They've gotten away with it for decades. And Donald Trump has absolutely had sick and tired of it, as he goes and he calls out CNN fake news right to their face. It's one of the all-time great Trump moments that will go down in history.
Violated, but Israel violated it too. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Trump again is right. He's never spoken like a politician. And that's one of the things I think that's made him so popular with here the people in the United States. Because he is just as furious as we are, as this is everything that we voted for Donald Trump was returning peace back to the Middle East. And do not doubt for a second that this was all Biden's mess. Donald Trump inherited a huge mess for either from Biden or from Kamala Harris or from the auto pen or whoever's running the White House when Joe Biden was quote unquote the president, lost in his closet, wherever he was located at the time, or being led around by some trans Easter bunny. Now we have to clean up this mess. And if there's maybe not another politician in the world that could do the job that Donald Trump has done. You go all the way back to like his first administration when no one said he could do the Abraham Accords, and then they were done. Even getting people like Ben Shapiro, who was not a Trump fan, and saying, maybe this guy's not so bad. When we do and don't think of Shapiro, at least he saw that this is something that Trump could bring peace through strength. Right? What would imagine what would happen if like Kamala Cackles Harris was in the White House when all this happened? Right? There's a very, I believe, a good chance that Iran would have a bomb at this very moment, or be days away, because that at least that's what Trump and his team believed. And the one thing that I find very different is, I'm old enough to remember Iraq, and I'm old enough to remember when there were weapons of mass destruction when there was none, and we invaded a country. We spent over $2 trillion, and thousands of lives were lost. This isn't the same thing. This isn't the neocons pushing for war. He warned them. They didn't listen. We stayed in the air. We dropped bombs. We destroyed the threat, and we left. And you have people like Jimmy Graham and all the others are trying to push for another endless war in the Middle East as they've wanted for decades. Donald Trump resisted, as he does, he always can, through the peace through strength. Now, we can move forward, and he is showing out. He goes, I think another one of the great moments from this morning, as it was nonstop, as he called out in this very same press conference over at CNN, you losers and suckers. This is one of Donald Trump's, and I think, again, one of his another great quotes.
Like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum. I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news.
Trump is just, he doesn't hold back. And they're going to, of course, whine, oh, you can't talk like that. The president of the United States, he can't speak to, corporate media that way. I mean, they are the number one news, right? The most honest news network, according to them, right? The leaders in news. But when all they really do is they lie hoax after hoax after hoax after hoax. And we've witnessed it for decades, really. But it hasn't been until the last couple of years that we've been able to prove who they really are. Because we've had alternate way to get out information. See, for an entire generation, it was only the corporate media that can get information out to you, the American voters. Whether it be CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Political Axios, every single one of them were in the bag for the DNC. They were all liberal Democrats. But they pretended this entire time that they were none of those things. They pretended that they were neutral journalists. And unfortunately, for an entire generation of Americans, you didn't really have another way to get information. Because whether you went to CNN or you went to MSNBC or you went to LA Times or New York Post or Washington Post or to your local newspaper, your local news networks, they were all running the same hoaxes together. And it wasn't until the rise of the independent creators that we were finally able to start to show them for who they really are. Because one of the things that they did that we were really able to expose, I think at the point where they really lost all their credibility, was when we were able to show, I think for many thought for a long time that they're probably lying, they're probably not telling all the stories. And many Americans, vast majority of Americans, think the way that you do. Would you consider yourself like an independent thinker? You probably are if you listen to this show. There's probably some issues that you agree with on the left, and there's probably some issues that you agree with on the right. But most issues, you're probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, does that sound like you? Because that's the vast majority of America. But they only had the only way to go into corporate media to gain all this information, and the corporate media was way far over on the left. All of a sudden, people would go and they turn on all the news, or they read the newspapers, and they think, well, maybe I'm wrong. You know, if all the networks, if they're all saying the same thing, and all the newspapers, if they're all saying the same thing, well, then maybe, maybe I'm the oddball. Maybe I'm not like how most of America thinks. That's what they got away with for decades. And then we expose them even further when we go and we're able to show even more about how far gone the fake news was. Because it wasn't just that they were withholding stories, and it wasn't just that they were framing stories in a way that they wanted you to come to the conclusion that they wanted you to come to. They went far worse than that, as they were now doing hoaxes. Probably for our entire lives, but now we can actually prove it because thanks to the internet, but most importantly, thanks to Elon Musk purchasing X, we can now actually show the world what is happening. And this came out big, I think, in 2024 in the elections. Probably the biggest moment was the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, as Joe Biden clearly did not want to debate Donald Trump. His team hit him, and they were hoping, just like they did in 2020, where Joe Biden could just sit in the basement, do a couple little, pre-scripted events here and there, and then the fake news networks and all the activists could carry him over the finish line, and then all the millennials in the White House, or whoever was actually running the White House, could do it again for a second term. But his poll numbers were so bad that they couldn't sit in the basement, and then he had to get forced to debate Donald Trump. Well, come on, pal, make my day. And then Donald Trump made his day and ended another career politician's career. But more importantly than that, that was the moment, I think, when the average American, the ones who didn't realize how far fake news had gone, started to realize that, whoa, we're being lied to openly and blatantly. I don't know what you thought. What did you think when you were watching that debate? But when I first watched it, I was thinking, this isn't even that bad. I can put up 10, 20 clips that are way worse than what Joe Biden is doing on stage there. Even at that moment when Donald Trump ended Biden's career and he said, no, I don't know what he said, and I don't think he knows what he said. And Joe Biden just stared at him with this blank face. That woke up the average viewer, I think, what I would call the normies. Right, the ones who pay casual attention to the news. But for us that paid close attention, that wasn't even that bad. Would you agree? And now we move forward, and then the fake news networks continue to learn nothing, as they went from hoax to hoax after that with their suckers and losers hoaxes, and then their Donald Trump, and then they went on with the 9 bullet hoaxes. This is, I think, the one that really put the nail in the fake news coffin, because even when Margaret was sitting there with Marco Rubio and was trying to lie about the 9 bullets hoaxes. So this is when Donald Trump was being interviewed with Tucker Carlson, and Donald Trump was talking about the neocons and their endless wars. And he was saying how the neocons would sit at home safely in Washington, D.C. and send your sons and your daughters out to go die. And then he used Liz Cheney as example because she was campaigning with Kamala Harris. And a quick side note there, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in politics is with the Democrats who spent the last 30 years or 20 years, hating the Cheneys. All of a sudden, we're backing Liz Cheney and talking like how she was one of them, further exposing what we call the uniparty. But Donald Trump used her as the example and saying, she sits safely at home at D.C. She doesn't have bullets flying past her head. 100% agree. But fake news, they cut the first part of the clip and they cut the second part of the clip. And then they said that Donald Trump was threatening to shoot Liz Cheney. And just a few years ago, maybe even back to 2022, because Elon Musk hadn't purchased X then, there was no real strong way for us to get all that information out. We couldn't take fake news clip and then show the real clip side by side to far majority of people. See, the thing is, whether you want influence or you want leadership or you want to report the news, whatever the case may be, whether you like someone like me who's independent in their and it's made a studio in their spare bedroom, or you're a giant corporation with billions of dollars at your back. The same laws apply. One of my favorite authors, John Maxwell, he compares leadership, but I think this also goes influence as change in your pocket. And everybody is born with so much change in their pocket. Some are stronger influencers, some are weaker influencers, some are stronger leaders, some are weaker leaders. You've known them all, right? Is the kid that at the playground that everybody likes versus the kid that doesn't have very many friends. Right? They have different levels of change in their pocket. However, you can change that with hard work, with dedication, with practice. You can add change to your pocket. And then as you go and you build influence and you build an audience, you can then gain more and more influence with your audience. And the reality is everybody is going to make a mistake sooner or later, right? They're going to get information. They're either going to get it wrong or they're going to misspeak. Especially shows like this where I'm live to you. So if I say something wrong or I misspeak it, I can't get on to the editor later and just cut it out and nobody knows, right? It's out there forever. It's the same thing with any leader or any influencer. Getting back to why fake news cannot influence any people anymore. Because things like that, like when they were lying with Biden about the debate and hiding for his cognitive decline for all those years. And they can lie now and they can write books and they can pretend that they didn't know this whole time, but who's really going to believe them? See, that's where they've lost all their change because they continue to lie to all these people, all the American voters, and now we can expose them to millions and millions of people. Every time they do that, they lose change out of their pocket. And now they have no change left. I mean, sure, there's still people who watch CNN and watch MSNBC, but they can't swing elections anymore. At least not now, 2024. And now we're coming up to 2026, and we'll see how those midterms come. And then 2028 to the next presidential elections. But if fake news even had their influence from back, let's say like 2020, at least that many people believe them, Donald Trump would not be president right now, and Kamala Harris would be sitting in the White House, and Iran would probably have a nuclear weapon. But thanks to really you, the American people, because your hunger to know the truth, of your desire to not be lied to, it's something that's just born in us. There's just a natural instinct. I think there's something about America where we just don't want to be slaves to the government. There's this born into us, this desire to have independence, to have personal freedom, the right to pursue happiness. And the Democrats and their friends of the fake news networks and then their deep state buddies are trying to take all that away from you. And once they lost the messaging, and then all the other lies started to be exposed, all of a sudden it's all coming downhill all at the same time. And we're going to cover some articles now as relates to Iran, the nuclear program, as the CNN and all the rest of the fake news networks are running the same hoaxes. We're going to walk how the spiral works from the deep state to the fake news to the Democrats, all that and more. But I'm way over our break as my screen is screaming at me. So we'll be back after this greedy profit break. You're not going to miss any of that. This is the Cash Loren Show. Well, the Democrats and their buddies over our fake news networks have learned absolutely nothing as they go and they double down on all the things that have made them so unpopular from the very start. Well, welcome back, folks. It is great to be here with you. I am your host, Cash Loren, and we are making liberals cry tears that are saltier than McDonald's fries. Starting out with their fake news networks, would be CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, all the rest, as they all run the same hoaxes together, and then they wonder why they've lost all their influence with you, the American voters. And this newest hoax they're trying to run, as we talked about earlier, the suckers and losers, and the 9 bullet hoaxes, and there's nothing wrong with Joe Biden. Just name the down the list. There's plenty of choices to choose from. The newest hoax they're trying to run now is that they're trying to run that the Iran, that their structures, when the Donald Trump flew over and bombed their nuclear reactors, weren't really that bad damage. I mean, yeah, they were destroyed, but they weren't, Iran will be back in just a couple months. This is just a minor setback. And I wonder, why do they hate our country so much? Why do they want not Donald Trump to fail, but really it's not Donald Trump who they want to fail. It's really they want you, the American people, to fail. For the Democrat side, they see everything through the lens of power, is that they see themselves as morally right, and they see themselves as just. And once they see themselves that way, so we call them like the liberal elites, right? They're just so arrogant, right? They're just conceited. It's almost like a slime or filth that's on their body. They can't see any other conclusion. And they certainly can't be wrong. If you try to call one of them wrong, also, well, then you're a racist, or you're a bigot, or you're homophobe, transphobe, white nationalist, an extreme MAGA Republican, or you're just too dumb. Like, they have Ivy League degrees. They are smarter than you. They are better than you. I mean, just starting to sound familiar, like every single Democrat. The sheep on the left, right? The 4 legs bad, good. 2 legs bad. Right? All in unison, all at the same time. There's all the fake news. They all run all the same talking points. And the Democrats, they somehow use all the same language with only a few different changes here and there. I don't know what focus group or what, who's behind the curtain that's telling them all to say the same thing. But it's amazing how you'll see like 50 of them post almost exactly the same post with just a couple words change. Or how the fake news every day, they will just decide, all at the same time. Well, this is a threat to our democracy. CNN, this is a threat to our democracy. MSNBC, this is a threat to our democracy. LA Times, threat to our democracy. New York Times, threat to our democracy. Over and over and over again. And then they wonder why they have no authenticity and why no one ever believes a word they say anymore, just like we're going through right now. So this next hoax is because they can't let Donald Trump win. And they don't care how far they have to burn down the United States, because the moment Donald Trump wins, that means that they lose. This is a binary choice for them, right? And that's just not an option. The parallels I really see a lot is like Hollywood, for example, where it's not directly in politics, but it works exactly the same. And you have these woke activists that have taken over these movies, that have taken over these TV shows, that have taken over comics, have taken over, you name it. And then what they try to do is they try to put in all this new progressive liberal ideology, whether it be Disney girl bosses or all the LGBTQ crap or anything else they try to push into every single show, right? Where they have to have they have to have all the right boxes checked. Right? They gotta be transgender, and they gotta be, all black women, or the case may be. And they would rather burn Hollywood to the ground than admit they were wrong and lose. They would rather Rings of Power fail than to see Lord of the Rings be great again. And that's how far these activists are willing to go. And that's part of why they've won for so long, is because our side has a tendency not to want to fight back. They you just want to go to work, and you don't want to pay your taxes, but you do it because it's your duty. And then you want to raise your family, and we're side is not the activist side. It's very rare that we get like the Scott Presslers of the world or the Donald Trumps. It's why there's such a huge deal when they happen. But the Democrats, they push. And this is how it leads. So it starts with, there's 3 heads to this beast. This 3-headed beast from the DC abyss. You have the deep state, who are all these unelected bureaucrats that want to take the agency, and the politicians are more than happy to do so. And then you have the Democrats that are the politicians. And then you have all the friends of the fake news networks. So those are the 3 heads, and they all work together. So what you'll have happen over and over and over again is you'll have someone in the deep state, they will leak out information to the fake news networks. And then the fake news networks, they run with it as experts say, because it's exactly what they wanted to hear in the same point, right? These Democrat activists in the deep state, and these Democrat activists in the mainstream media. They have no interest in the truth. They have no interest in vetting any of this stuff. They're just going to say experts say or science say and run with the points they want, and then try to silence you by calling you names if you dare to question them one bit. But if anything, from COVID to all the experts that they've been lying blatantly to you now, and they have no influence left over middle America. And a part of me is really sad about this. because I don't want to not trust experts, right? We want people who spend their whole lives studying a subject and who know a lot about that subject, because it could take for like 5 years to become an expert on a certain subject. Maybe more, maybe less. But it's not the college degree that makes you an expert. It's your knowledge and then your ability to communicate that to your audience and to the people who are listening. So we have something happen, let's say like a pandemic, or we have some kind of government corruption. We want to be able to trust those experts to give the information, and then you, the American people, you make your choice. But the experts have crossed that line. Instead of what they do now is, instead of just giving you the information and letting you make up your mind, they decide that no, they need to have the end result. And then you either give you the facts that take you to the end result and then ignore everything that doesn't. They're not acting as experts, they're acting as activists. And that's why they've lost all their influence in the first place. And it's too bad. Because let's say there is another pandemic, one that's being real. And then, people, when the experts go on, they try to warn us, and no one wants to listen because of how they've been lied to for 2020. Now we're much, much better. We're much, much worse off. But the reality is that they have lied to us over and over and over again. And as we're going through here with Iran, the nuclear is this newest hoax. This is how they do it with the three-headed beast from the DC abyss. Okay, so you have experts in the deep state, anonymous sources, go to CNN and they lie to CNN about a report. And this is how they partially lie, because part of it is true. But see, the thing is, it's mostly opinion and it's supposed to be top secret. But they leaked it anyways, and CNN puts top secret information on the TV. A huge problem. And now we have articles like this coming out from the AP. Earlier U.S. intelligence reports suggest U.S. strikes only set back Iran's nuclear program by months. And then we have CNN exclusive. Early U.S. intel assessments suggest strikes on Iran did not destroy the nuclear sites, sources say. Doesn't this all sound familiar? Strikes set back the Iran nuclear program only by a few months, U.S. reports say. So they're all running the same hoax all the other again, but it looks like it's bigger than they are because all these networks are running it together at the same time. But this is a low-level staffer that releases the information that they should have never released because they want to damage, they want to hate Trump. Because the Democrats, all they care about is power. And they will do anything to pursue that power. Once they go and they're willing, once they see the end, as they see themselves as morally right. And they see themselves as they are superior to you. And so if they are morally right and they are superior, then anything they do to any means justifies the ends. Don't doubt for a single second. And I think many of you do now understand how far they're willing to go. I mean, if I tried to say this even 10 years ago, probably most of America would have called me a conspiracy theorist. But now most people are like, yeah, I get it. Fake news is lying to us. It's amazing how much has changed, all because we have freedom of information, actual real free speech now. And then watch when the Democrats, they try to do misinformation or disinformation or hate speech, but really what they're trying to do is silence speech that they don't like. Because they don't want things like this coming out, because immediately it's responded. You have Pete Hegseth, he goes on, based on everything we have seen and all I've seen, our bombing campaign obliterated the Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of these bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just undermining the president's success and mission. Again, agree. That's exactly what this is. This is the so-called experts and the friends that make mainstream information putting out actual disinformation and misinformation because they want you to come to a conclusion that you never would have come to if you hadn't known. Right? These were actual journalists, not activists. They would scratch their head for a minute. Or they'd say, this is supposed to be classified information. Maybe I shouldn't release this to the public. Or they would actually call like Pete Hegseth, or they would call Caroline Levy, and they would ask, hey, is this true? Can you confirm or not confirm? But they don't do any of that because they hate Trump because they hate you. At the end of the day, all they care about is power. And then you have Caroline Levy. She also responds to this as she goes, this alleged assessment is flat out wrong and is classified as top secret, but it was leaked to CNN by an anonymous, low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is clearly an attempt to demean the President Trump 100%. That is why, to discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted the perfect execution military to obliterate the Iran's nuclear program. You know, why do the Democrats want Iran to have a nuclear weapon so bad? Can you explain why they want the U.S. to fail? Why they want our enemies like Iran to be able to launch nuclear missiles? I mean, they're apparently close. Going off what Donald Trump and his executive team is saying, like Secretary of State Marco Rubio, where he is saying that they had warheads, they were enriching uranium to 60%. It doesn't take much to go from 60% to 90%, and then there's no reason to even get to 60% unless you're trying to weaponize uranium. And then they were using short and mid-range missiles that they could attach a warhead to, and they were using this, claiming as a space program. But when is Iran trying to get to the moon? Donald Trump had his hand forced, and he forced Iran, and he forced the issue. When Iran refused to stop the nuclear program, it forced Donald Trump to drop these bombs. But the deep state, they hate Donald Trump. The fake news networks, they hate Donald Trump, and they cannot allow a single success for America or Trump. And so this is how it's worked for as long as I've been alive. It's just in the last few years, we've been able to expose it to the masses. See, this is the three-headed beast. The deep state at the bottom, they go and they release something over to fake news. Fake news then says experts say, sources say, and so they write all these articles. Okay, then the Democrats, they quote fake news as saying if these articles are legitimate. And then it goes back to the deep state, and they now open up all their investigations based on the information that they fraudulently leaked in the first place. Whether it be Russia, or the 9 bullets hoaxes, or any of the impeachment hoaxes, or Ukraine, or Hunter Biden's laptop, just name hoax after hoax after hoax. It's all the same ploy over and over and over again. It is nothing new. Probably going as far back as we have corporate media. The only difference is now we have independent creators who can now expose these deep state for the lying, hypocrite hoaxers that they are. I really hope that I'm not being unclear. As they disparage our military and they try to tear down Donald Trump and his administration because they believe that they rule over you, that they were born to rule. These unelected bureaucrats don't think that they should have to share power. They think that they are smarter, that they're better, they're wiser. They went to Ivy League degrees, right? They have masters, they have doctorates, right? They have all the right qualifications. And then now they are deeply entrenched in this giant abyss beast in Washington, D.C. So they think it is their job to write the rules and regulations to rule over you. And the Democrats in the Uniparty are more than happy to go along with it because it gives them the power they want without the responsibility. It's a win-win for the deep state, it's a win-win for the Uniparty, and it's a loss-loss for you, the American people. Then the one thing that happened that was never supposed to happen is Donald Trump won again, and he came back. And what's really ironic is if they had just left 2020 alone, Donald Trump would be out of politics right now. And the three-headed beast from DC would be fully intact, and they'd just be going right around doing what they're always doing. But instead, not only did they help Donald Trump come back, but they also pushed people like Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK and all the other people that would traditionally been Democrats. See, how do you think Donald Trump won all 7 swing states or won the popular vote? It's not just the people in politics. It's you, the American people, want a free country. We don't want, whether they want to call it liberalism or they want to call it socialism or they want to call it progressivism, it's all the same ism. It's all communism. It's all the liberal elites desire to be something like China and to rule over you. or that we are at another break. So we'll be right back after this greedy profit break. You're not going to miss anything else. This is the Cash Loren Show. Well, no, the liberal elites have learned absolutely nothing because the liberal elites think that they are morally right and they are morally better. They're smarter than you. They're wiser than you. They have Ivy League degrees. They are born to rule. And this includes people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who had an absolute meltdown between her and Donald Trump earlier, all because that he dared to call her out for her BS. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, her and people like Jasmine Crockett, they continue to learn nothing as they're in these very deep blue areas of the country. They virtually have no concern about losing their seat. But the Democrats, they have learned the wrong lesson, and they think that because these people are in these deep blue sectors, that they can then bring them up to the national stage. And I say, please do it. Please try what works in New York out in the rest of the country. As this goes with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she shows how further she is from the rest of America, is that she went in and she went to back the New York mayor, Madani, and then over Cuomo. And in doing so, probably the most radical socialist you can think of. He's got to be right along the lines of, how do you go from like Chicago going from Lightfoot over to Johnson? This is the same kind of Looney Tunes nonsense. And yet it looks like New York is probably going to put this guy as the mayor of New York. How are people not learning any lessons? It's weird. It's socialism. It's the poison fruit, right? It's the apple in the garden. It's the worm on the end of a fish hook. So they promise you all these really good things, just like what he's promising right now, right? Free buses, rent freezes, grocery stores that are owned by the government that will keep prices down. Every single place that socialism has been tried has failed. The utopia never ever works, not a single time. Yet they keep trying it, and not only are they trying to do it in other countries, now the Democrats are working overtime to try to bring it here in the United States. And you see everywhere it goes, the Democrats have power. What do? Taxes go up, your life goes down as you have less and less quality of life. Every single place the Democrats have control. There's not a single exception. It's the same thing for anywhere where they try socialism and anywhere where they try communism. It's all the same cloth. It's all the same coin. And this is your warning, but it works over and over again because they never say that, elect us and you will never have another election again. Or elect us and we being the socialists and the communists will kill more people than all the world wars have been combined. Did you know that? That more people die from socialism/communism than all the wars ever fought. That is how dangerous these ideas are. But they're promised as this wide open field of happiness, this utopia. Because who wouldn't want to ride a bus for free? Or who wouldn't want their rents to go up? Or who wouldn't want the government, in his case, but who wouldn't want groceries to stay cheap? But see, that's always a lie. And it's always a lie because you can start right from the front. When the Democrats and anybody talks about free, the reality is somebody has to pay for it. Well, let's start with his free grocery stores, right? Where he's claiming you don't have to pay taxes on the land and they don't pay mortgages on the land. So therefore, right, they're going to pass the savings on to you. Sure, many of you are already seeing the problems with this. As we said, there is nothing that is ever free because the money has to come from somewhere. Either it's not coming in because there's not someone paying for that property, or it's not going out because the government's not paying money back to itself. So the money's not there one way or another. And go ask Venezuela, go ask Cuba, go ask India, go ask anywhere that has tried price fixing with the government, how that has worked out. 100% of the time, it ends in poverty, death, and despair. Empty shelves. There is not a single case where this has worked. And it's really easy to dissect. It's just the process of getting food onto the shelves is a huge, complicated process. You can't have somebody, just some useless career bureaucrat sitting on the top running all of it. See, when the Democrats try to talk about profit as it's evil, profit built the greatest country this world is. Profit is what motivates the biggest, the brightest, and the smartest to go and make something new. It's what makes people innovate. Is that desire to take something from nothing, create something that people need, and then being rewarded with money as a result and living a really good life. And the more that you serve, right, the more that you solve people's problems, then the more money that you will have. The better you are at it, right, the more success you will have. With the Democrats, they get this backwards because they see it through his equity lens, meaning the ending, not the equality lens, meaning opportunity. So they think they have to make things fair. And in order to make things fair, they didn't have to destroy everything in the path and then rise up from their new utopia in the ashes. That's why communism is always violent. And that's why many billions, millions of people, hundreds of millions of people have died from communism. Is this how it starts? Right? It starts in the universities, and then it starts with the promise of free this and free that, and then it ends with death and despair. Yeah, it appears that New York is going to learn no lessons. They're going to take the bite of the frozen fruit. They're going to be attracted to the worm at the end of the fish hook. It's horrible and it's sad because the other side, the side that actually leads to success, capitalism and independent freedom, the reality is those don't offer free. Right? They offer hard work. They offer dedication. They say take years and years to see fruits of your labor. But people don't want that. They want the quick fix. They want the immediate dopamine hit. And so you have to choose, work for years to have success or have something free now. Too many people fall for the free and they don't see the curve that's actually going to cost them everything in the end. I mean, look at where government programs have worked. You can't find one. Look at what the great societies have done to like the Black community, for example. It has probably hit them harder than any other community as they have bought into these welfare programs. Welfare, kicking fathers out of their homes, and it's done so much damage to their communities that hopefully, I think now they're finally starting to wake up and finally understand that the answer is not the government. The answer is the nuclear family under our Lord Savior Jesus Christ. That is morality, and that is freedom. It's not easy. It's really hard work. It takes lots of dedication. It's waking up every day. It's going to work. It's earning a paycheck, and it's being smart with your money. See, that stuff is hard. That's not the easy path. So many people don't want to choose it. They falsely think that the government is here to save them, when the government can't solve the problems because the government is the problem. And that's our battle. When the Democrats lie, they win. When we succeed at telling the truth, America wins. And it looks like New York is going to buy into this lie. As bad as Como is, and he should never be mayor again, they're not going to learn lessons and stop voting Democrat. No different than Chicago after they had to kick Lightfoot out after being one time as mayor. And then what did they went to someone more radical and more left to her and Mike Johnson. This is absolutely insanity of the left, choosing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And the Democrats think this is great, so they put people up like AOC in front of you. And then also, I think Jasmine Crockett, who's competing with AOC every day to see if she can be the dumbest person in Congress. Now she's trying to decide that she is commander-in-chief over President Trump, and she should have decided what did and didn't happen in Iran.
And to understand enough about the Constitution to the extent that I'm the one that's supposed to make a fucking decision or at least get a vote. Right. Because Ron is telling me. Right. So literally, like,
Yeah. So apparently she decided one day that she was the commander in chief of the military. I wonder if she can point into the Constitution. Where does it say that Jasmine Crockett gets to decide military action? Where does Jasmine Crockett get to decide where troops go and don't go? Where is the violation in the Constitution? This is how the Democrats, they have to completely lie over and over and over again. And she knows she's lying, and everybody else knows she's lying. That's why I say, please take someone like Jasmine Crockett. You know what? Put AOC in a private jet, fly her all over the country, and talk about fighting the oligarchy. Please put Jasmine Crockett in front of as many cameras as you can and have her talking about a constitutional crisis. Please do it. Please, Democrats, continue to learn nothing. Please insist on never winning another election again. Insist on being the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue there is. But because of their liberal elitist bubble, because they only talk to each other and they push everybody they don't agree with out, they don't realize that they're just this tiny little part of America, and most of America does not agree with them in a single bit. And I don't know. I mean, do you think that Donald Trump should have texted Jasmine Crockett and say, "Hey, Jasmine, we're going to go bomb Iran's nuclear facility. I just thought I'd give you a heads up and let you know, so that way you can leak this information out to the fake news networks and maybe even warn Iran." See, that's what's interesting. They kept a very tight ship. The Democrats didn't know. And amazingly, when the Democrats didn't know, there was all of a sudden, there was no leaks until the job was done. Isn't that ironic? I really think that's ironic. I think that's way too much of no coincidence there. She is not, if she wants to, Jasmine Crockett, if she wants to be commander in chief, you know what she needs to do? She needs to run for president. If these judges, if they want to be president, then they need to run for office. We elected Donald Trump to be the executive of the federal government. He has exclusive authority as he's the only member of the federal government that the entire country voted for. Not House members, not Senate members, not House members, only president. And now the Democrats and these judges in this deep state are trying to pretend that as Donald Trump is the only person that's been elected by everybody in the United States, that somehow he has no authority, that he can't make a single decision without their permission. What do you say to that? And with that, we're out of time. The rest of these stories will be back in the stack. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the Cash. Well, independent thinkers, we have reached the top of another hour. If you have enjoyed this content and haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the follow button, turn on notifications so you don't miss a moment. We will be live Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern every single weekday, followed by an after show exclusively over on Locals. But first, I'd like to thank our patriotic producer, Brooke, for all the help that she does to make this show possible. Also, if you would like to support the show, speaking of Locals, we'll be hosting an after show after this show airs, and you can gain additional perks for supporting the show, such as exclusive content, follow, and access to the after show and your name at the end of videos, just like these fine young independent thinkers who have supported the show as well. So thank each and every one of you, and make sure you head over to Locals. We'll be live here to talk here in a few more minutes. This is the Cash Loren Show, and God bless the USA.